few times you have mentioned past life. I was wondering if you could elaborate on what you mean by past life. Many thanks and all the best, Bruce. Yeah, thanks, Bruce, for your question. I don't know what I mean by past lives. I think my relationship with it changes. I feel like sometimes I remember things that aren't in this life. So it's like my character has evolved from other stories from different lives. Like I have a strong connection to a witch, like a healer. And yeah, there's a strong connection to that story. So that's the only thing really that I know about it, is that in my story there is a connection to these other stories, like a resonance. And there's also a feeling as well of like having lived all stories, or knowing all stories, like all characters. So there is this like deep connection to other people's stories. So that's one thing. And then if you like research Indian philosophy and Indian religions and Buddhism, they often talk about past life, so there's a connection there. So dependent on the group that you're following or what you're researching, they will have different ideas. What I learned was something called rebirth, which I liked the idea of, which is not a personal thing. So it's not like Lisa is reborn. It's like an energy that's reborn. So you could say that Lisa is like an energy, but she's not like a separate entity. It's like this energy of Lisa, but Lisa has come from many characters prior to that. So it's like a build-up of human energy that gets reborn, and that energy kind of like gets stuck together and then is reborn again. And if you look at that through like Western science and like Western thinking, you could look at that as genes and conditioning, because conditioning comes from all humans that have come before. So the way in which we're conditioned is the way in which society believes that we should act and behave as humans, and that's come from this line of people that have been teaching each other through stories how to behave. So in a way, you're acting out other people's stories through that, even though that's a really complicated notion. And then also your genes are kind of information that's come from the past of other humans and their stories. So for an example of that, there was this test on rats where they traumatized a mother rat and then they bred her, and they didn't traumatize the baby rats, but when they introduced the babies to the trauma that the mother was traumatized by, say pencil, the rats were naturally afraid of it. So it's like this information we're always passing on. So all of that to me kind of like mixed together in a cauldron and kind of feels right. But I don't know about these things. It's in the sense of, it's not like you can open up the universe and read the coding of how this is working. So something that we're really attracted to in humans is people that sound like they really know what they're talking about, because I'm sure that helped us survive. And there's some things that you can be more accurate about, but with this, how can we be accurate about it? And in the sense, like, how can we prove or not prove past lives? Like, it's not like we can do a test that we can think of, like, to test past life. I mean, some of the Buddhists do, and they go around, they find children that can speak about their past life in detail that they wouldn't possibly know about. But there's never been some sort of like scientific worldwide tests of past life. And some people expect non-duality teachers to have some sort of like magic wand where they slice open reality, open it up, look at the coding, and then like, and then the teacher comes and it's like, yes, there is past life and I am ultimately correct. And that's also valid because that's what's happening in that experience, but it's because that body feels it. I don't know if that body can necessarily prove it through some sort of mathematical explanation or scientific explanation. And I feel like women tend to be more like I don't know and more open to multiple possibilities and more comfortable with holding that. And people dislike that in a leader. So recently I went on to Buddha at the Gas Pump, Buddha at the Gas Pump YouTube page, and I looked at all the interviews, his popular interviews on there, and I went through the popular interviews, and guess what? You can go and do it yourself as an experiment, but what you might see is that it's like man, 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 man. So the most popular is a man, the second most popular is a man, third most popular. And why is that? Because I think what he tries to do is he tries to do man, woman, man, woman. So I don't think it's Rick Archer that's being sexist and only interviewing men. It's the audience that is picking to watch men. And the thing that's even more mind-blowing about that is that the biggest audience to spirituality is women. And I think, and this is maybe a like really sexist idea that could get machine gunned, so you're so welcome to comment in the box below and tell me that if I've been sexist or inappropriate, and we can open up a discussion, because I'm so open to expanding the information in this brain and thinking about things in a different way. But what I conclude is that women have been taught and tend to be attracted to somebody that's very sure this is the way. Because in the past, maybe, like our evolution was, like if you had a really sure man, it was like, yes, I can do it, and yes, da, 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 then maybe your survival chances were higher. So a woman maybe has more suspicion that a woman could possibly lead because she's not so sure. But it's a really subconscious thing, because it's us as women that are doing this. If we're the biggest audience of spirituality, and you go on to something like Buddha at the Gas Pump, which would be interesting to ask statistically in his YouTube analytics, like what is his biggest audience? Because I do know that YouTube tends to attract more men as well. But his biggest, and why that the most popular talk speakers on there are men, and why that's like by far. Go on now and take a look and see. So this sureness is a very interesting thing, and we kind of like, I suppose we need to change from that, because yeah, that's maybe was really great in the past when our survival was a lot more vulnerable. But now that we're living in this like collective society and we've got the opportunity to evolve, maybe we need to leave those qualities behind, because maybe that's not the best leader for like international peace. Because I'm sure that, I'm always dreading saying his name, because whatever I come up with, everyone always tells me it's wrong. Putin. Sorry. It's my brain. I'm neurologically diverse. Struggles with words. Putin, and like Boris Johnson. So they're very much like, I know the way, follow me, my way is definitely the best, I am right. And maybe that's something that we can evolve past if we internally as individuals evolve past that. That surety is maybe great when we're like really like struggling for survival. But when we're in this opportunity of evolving into a peaceful society, maybe that actually also creates war and creates a lot of conflict. And the more peaceful way is maybe a more feminine way of like, yeah, I don't have all the answers, but that doesn't mean that you need to be afraid of me. That doesn't need to mean that you need to be suspicious. Recently, I read somebody saying, you know, like that I seem like a con artist. I don't get that so often. And I also simultaneously read that comment while reading these books on lying. One of my characters I'm writing in my books, I'm also a fiction writer. They're lying, and so I wanted to read these books on lying. And what was really super interesting in the research on lying and the way that it presents typically in society it is actually similar to people that have been through a really profound shift and really questioned the nature of their reality. So it's like you get regular society that doesn't lie, and they answer questions in a specific way. And then you get liars, and then you get people that have been through a non-duality investigation. And what ends up looking similar is the liars and the non-duality people in the lying world, like in the research of liars. And the reason it is because, like, so a liar, when a liar is asked a question that they're lying about, they won't give you a straight answer. So they won't say yes or no if they're lying about it. They'll give you a sort of more covert or more unsure answer. So somebody very famous for that is like Bill Clinton, you know, with the he cheated on his wife. And when he was asked questions about it, I'm now forgetting, he didn't answer directly. So it wasn't like, did you cheat on his wife? And he was like, no. It was something like no categorically, but it was like the answers weren't a direct answer. So this is something that they look for in lying, is like not direct answering. I can't explain that right now. But when you're also been through a profound internal shift, you really realize that your reality isn't necessarily true. Your thoughts aren't necessarily true. You don't think that you're a liar, but you know so deeply that any story that you give somebody can be interpreted a billion ways, and you can present it in different ways. So you really become to see that, like, stories aren't truth. So the way that we're narrating things aren't truth. It doesn't mean that we become liars, but it means that we maybe become more humble about the way we answer questions. So we're not so sure about things. We're more like, yeah, it could be. I'm not sure. So if somebody asked me if I was enlightened, like, I might be very non-specific in the way that I answer. In the world of lying, that would be considered a lie because I'm not being very specific about it. Like, they would consider being specific means that you're less likely to be showing that you're lying. But it's such a complicated subject. If you asked if I'm enlightened, like, to me, if I said, yes, I am enlightened, that would be a lie. But then to also say, no, I'm not enlightened would be a lie. Like, it's not as easy as all of that. And that really fascinated me, that they like hold similarities. And I thought about the liar as well, and how like when you're lying, like if you're a proper liar that lies all the time, you're acutely aware that the nature of your stories influence people, aren't true, and that are dependent on the way you spin it. So the way people see you, the way people see reality is dependent on the way you spin it. So you're very, like, in a way, removed from what you're saying. You know what you're saying isn't true, and you most probably look at everybody else with that doubt as well. It's not the same as a non-duality realization, but it's this kind of like suspicion on the nature of storytelling, whereas people in the middle just believe in their reality. It's like, yes, this is right, this is wrong, this is the way it is. And so that really interested me. So what we might also have, like subconsciously, is when we listen to people that aren't really sure, we might subconsciously question whether they're lying, because we might have some form of knowing this in our body. Not that they are lying, but knowing that, or thinking or believing that people that aren't certain with their answers and aren't really strong with their answers are lying, and the people that are stronger with their answers are less likely to be lying. And I think a lot of women in non-duality tend to present this. Like, I see a lot of women, and men as well, but more women, I think, being less certain in the answers, and I really respect it and I really love it. But it creates, I think, distrust in the audience. The audience wants somebody that's really like, bam, 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 boo. So basically, Bruce, you just started a massive like about that answer, and that's my perspective on it, but I can't know its truth. The only thing that I can ever know that's true is what's happening. There is things that are relatively more true and less true, but the thing that I know that's truth is what is this empty looking and this I am. Can you handle that? I'm sure you can, Bruce, but everybody else, can you handle that? How does it make you feel? Okay.